entertain. No, we take a coffee. We take a coffee. We wait for 5 minutes. Great. What a passport. Yeah, you're right. So you know what? I think that should be 5 minutes. It's him. Um, and then, well, uh, if it is all right with Perai, I would have him, I would change the, yeah, exactly. So that he needs to speak first, of course. In fact, that is exactly what I was proposing. Yeah, but don't worry. We already shifted. Sorry, no. You're exposed. I mean, what you do and what has been done. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, the usual thing. Yes. Lui chi è? Ah, lui è Terai, esatto. Andava bene come produzione. Non lo so, non ho nessuno. This should be sprint to Brussels. So. Brussels is late. Che dici? Recuperato Bruxelles.
Okay, we can start. Let me.
Okay. Welcome, welcome, and now to this panel. And as you see, we are linked up with Mrs. Milou Birepot, project manager from Brussels, from the European Commission. Welcome, welcome. And we also see Mr. Anis Terai, the managing director of TEL Group, also he's online. And here, sitting in the hall, you see on my left, Gramenos Mastroianni, you all do know him, Senior Deputy Secretary General of the Union for Mediterranean. Then we have Mr. Mohammed Ougmet, Director of Renewable Energies and Energy Efficiency at the Ministry for Energy Transition and Sustainable Development of Morocco. And next to him, Mr. Ali Zeraouli, he's the acting vice president of the Africa Commission for CGM, and Mr. Mohammed El Husseini, energy expert at Union for the Mediterranean. So as I was saying before, I mean, this panel is extremely important because on one hand, we'll showcase the support for local authorities in the private sector. And it's a moment where, well, governments, European Union, private sector, local authorities have a chance to showcase their activities and to interact and to well, get to know best practices, which is always very, very important. And for a presentation, I would give the floor immediately to who thought about and who hosted this panel. It's the third year that Union for the Mediterranean hosts this panel, Energy and Climate Business Forum, which is an important moment. It's a moment where people can meet, where ideas can meet. And this is exactly what is extremely needed, exchange ideas in the Mediterranean, because the Mediterranean North and South Shore, they all belong to the same sea. So I give the floor to Gramenos Mastroianni, please.
So thank you so much, Maria. I think my duty is more to welcome, and before welcoming, to thank. I wish to thank sincerely the Moroccan General Confederation of Enterprises for being a fantastic partner in this edition. I wish to thank RAI, the Italian National Television, for supporting us and also for tasking such a well-known face as Maria, who's sitting besides me. I will leave description of what UfM's approaches to energy in the Mediterranean are to my colleague Mohammed, who is in charge of this. And I would just like to share with you three little stories. One is from a lot of time ago, but it's still telling. You know, when we get to things like climate, energy transition, etc., the general feeling is that these are very big problems. So it is up to the big guys to solve them, the United Nations, the presidents, as though they could change everything. And in principle, what we think, me, the common person, the business person, I'm just a drop in the ocean. What is my importance? Well, we are the ones who can make the difference. All those things that the big guys can do, treaties, laws, fiscal measures, are just pieces of paper if they do not favor the change in opportunities for the common people. In the year 301 after Christ, Emperor Diocletian found himself for the first time in front of the first well-documented case of hyperinflation. He decided to solve it the emperor's way, with something that came from above, something similar to a treaty, to a law. He decreed that prices would stop growing. And what he obtained is that on the official market, indeed, prices stopped growing. But all the commerce shifted towards black market, where prices were growing even more because there was this prohibition from the emperor. So the United Nations, the presidents, the ministers can do whatever they want, but if they are not understood, seconded, and empowered by the real market, which is common people, common companies, we don't go very far away. Another story concerns climate negotiations. In climate negotiations, which is my day-to-day job, there is a quite tense chapter called technology transfer. It is tense because, let us be sincere, technology transfer is a little bit conceived as the generous gift of the beautiful, advanced, and clever to those who are not so much. And we think about last generation computers and things like that. Well, in the Mediterranean, something strange is happening that gives another perspective to this. In some 15 years, the southern part of Europe will have more or less the same climate that Northern Africa has had for thousands and thousands of years. A different climate means a different know-how, means different phytogenetic resources, means a different way to use energy. Who has this know-how? Where do we need this technology from? If you travel along the Silk Road, you will find strange buildings which are called yakchal. They are cone-shaped buildings. They look a little bit like a Smurf's hat. In Persian, yakchal means the fridge. They were used by merchants to deposit perishable goods. And they have one characteristic. Even if outside is 55 degrees, the temperature inside is always between 0 and -4. And watt expenditure is 0. So who has to learn from who? Maybe we have the opportunity, and this is what is luckily happening. This is also the narrative of UfM, to say, basically, we need each other. We all have to learn from each other. We all have something to put in common. And this is about the third story. The third story is about something which is called the New Green Deal that has been launched by the European Commission. I am European, although I work with an organization that gathers states from the north and the south. And so we have reflected. There was a temptation at the beginning to present the Green Deal as a way to say we are the Ferraris of the world. Look at us, how good we are. But then it was clear, if the Green Deal was conceived like the ivory tower of exceptional advancement and did not care about what happens outside it, this is not a moral calculation. It's just an interest calculation. This would induce destabilization around, and this in turn would induce inside Europe so many imported costs that in the end we would not have enough money to have our own Green Deal. One sector in which this is particularly clear is energy. Europe wants to decarbonize by 2050, but it is clear that we cannot decarbonize if we do not rely on the renewable potential around us, which is the south shore of the Mediterranean, is also the wind power of the Balkans, not all of them included in the European Union, and much more. On the other hand, this huge potential needs to be financed, and sound finance needs to rely on a large enough market. But if this potential only relied on internal markets, there would be not enough financial fuel to develop it. So before more concrete things that are going to be illustrated by my colleague Mohammad, this is the narrative of the Union for the Mediterranean. Climate is forcing us to recognize something that has always been true, but is particularly true now. Nobody around the Mediterranean has enough resources to face a crisis of this pace and magnitude on its own. But together we do. And if we do join, if we do put together what we have, by the way, even if it's not our goal, even if we are only tackling climate, we are actually solving the millenniums old problem of the Mediterranean, a sea of civilization, but never really a sea of peace, because it was a sea of rich and poor and things like that. But an economy in which we recognize that I need your Kanat technology, you need my solar cells, I need your crops because my land is becoming like yours. I need your wisdom is finally a seed that overcomes climate change and builds what we've always missed forever, which is peace. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Gramenos. Thank you very much, because you put a framework, even a cultural framework, I would say. And our next speaker, the Director for Renewable Energies, Mohammad Ahmed, as you introduced him, I'd like that you would start. I mean, Gramenos brought us 3 stories, and I would like that you would start from the first one. You work at the Ministry for Sustainable Climate and Management, Energy and Mines here in Morocco. You are our hosts. And of course, here, as in other countries, as in Italy, my country, or other countries, I mean, we have got huge challenges that are put to us through climate change. We have to adapt, we have to mitigate, we have to know how, and we have to also know how to bring society as a whole with us and not impose, as Diocletian did, like you have inflations by decree, I declare that all the prices have to be fixed, what Gramenos said. So how do you, what are the challenges that you face, and how do you manage to implement them in a way that you lift up the whole of society and not just some individuals? Like, for instance, in my country, big, I mean, not in Europe, I mean, fine, renewable energy, electric cars, but is that only for the rich? So that is one of the divides, but please, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame. C'est pour moi tout d'abord un plaisir de participer à ce panel important dans une région, il faut le dire, qui a abrité le premier parc éolien qui a été installé au Maroc. C'était Kodi El Beida, que nous sommes en train de renouveler. Et comme vous l'avez précisé dans votre introduction, la région euroméditerranéenne, c'est une région qui dispose, c'est-à-dire d'atouts importants, mais qui est confrontée également à des défis liés particulièrement au développement durable et au changement climatique. Je voudrais également souligner que les 2 rives disposent, c'est-à-dire d'atouts complémentaires. Donc, nous disposons de potentiels importants, naturels, éoliens, solaires. Quand on parle d'éolien, aussi bien offshore qu'onshore, mais également des technologies de levier de financement, de capital humain. Donc, je pense que cette région, elle est bien qualifiée à jouer un rôle très important dans cette transition écologique et énergétique mondiale. Pour le cas du Maroc, la coopération euro-méditerranéenne, c'est un choix stratégique qui a été concrétisé déjà par des réalisations de terrain, notamment en termes d'interconnexion énergétique. C'est les seuls d'ailleurs entre l'Europe et l'Afrique, mais également en étendant cette coopération vers l'Afrique, et peut-être mon collègue Ali va développer ce volet. L'engagement du Maroc dans cette transition énergétique, ça fait plus de 15 ans, qui a été entamé dans une vision très claire, dans laquelle il a accordé une place très importante aux énergies renouvelables, à l'efficacité énergétique, mais aussi à l'intégration régionale. Et quand on parle de l'intégration régionale, c'est l'intégration des marchés, notamment avec nos partenaires européens. Nous venons de faire un bilan d'étape et les résultats sont relativement encourageants. Donc, en termes tout d'abord de projets en exploitation, on a presque 4,1 gigawatts qui sont en exploitation. C'est environ 40% de notre capacité. On a également réduit notre dépendance énergétique de 7 points. Les énergies renouvelables contribuent de 1/5 à la production de l'énergie électrique. Et en termes d'efficacité énergétique, notre démarche était une démarche très progressive, comme vous l'avez d'ailleurs précisé tout à l'heure. C'était une démarche qui a été entamée par de la sensibilisation, par des projets de démonstration, des projets pilotes, Mais aujourd'hui, notre pays a choisi quand même une démarche et une stratégie pour, c'est-à-dire booster l'efficacité énergétique en positionnant l'État, pour donner l'exemple. Et aujourd'hui, on peut dire que toutes les composantes de la société marocaine, aussi bien privée, publique, politique que sociale, accordent beaucoup plus d'importance à l'efficacité énergétique. Et d'ailleurs, rien qu'au mois de novembre, nous avons lancé une initiative d'incitation à l'économie énergétique dans un contexte, comme vous l'avez tout à l'heure souligné, c'est-à-dire de flambée des cours des produits énergétiques. Et nous avons constaté qu'il y a une interaction positive de l'ensemble des acteurs, que ce soit industriels, que ce soit opérateurs économiques, mais que ce soit des ménages, c'est-à-dire au niveau de toutes les régions du royaume. Un élément qui est très important, c'est que le Maroc a décidé d'accélérer davantage cette transition énergétique à travers un certain nombre de programmes et d'initiatives concrètes. Je cite en particulier, par exemple, la cadence de développement des énergies renouvelables. Je peux vous dire qu'il a été multiplié par 4. C'est-à-dire que la capacité qui est développée, qui est plutôt planifiée, à l'horizon 2027, c'est de développer une capacité supplémentaire de 6,5 gigawatts. Donc, c'est environ plus d'1 gigawatt par an. Et en termes d'investissement, on est passé de 4 milliards de dirhams par an à 14 milliards de dirhams par an, malgré, c'est-à-dire la baisse des coûts des technologies. Donc, rien que cet indicateur, et il confirme que le Maroc a vraiment, il est en train d'accélérer davantage sa transition énergétique et ces capacités-là sans tenir compte, bien sûr, de l'hydrogène vert, mais également des projets de dessalement d'eau de mer. On a programmé une vingtaine de projets et l'orientation du royaume, c'est que toutes ces installations soient adossées de projets d'énergie renouvelable. Un autre élément très important, c'est que le mois de février dernier, il a été marqué par la publication de 2 lois très importantes. C'est les 2 lois qui instaurent le marché libre des énergies renouvelables. Et c'est une réforme qui a été entamée de manière concertée avec l'ensemble des opérateurs, que ce soit privé, public ou collectivités territoriales. Et l'objectif, c'est de renforcer davantage la production décentralisée, de renforcer la flexibilité du réseau en permettant à des opérateurs privés également de développer des capacités de stockage, de donner le droit à un développeur privé d'avoir un certificat d'origine, ce qui lui permettrait c'est-à-dire de valoriser ses efforts en termes de réduction des émissions de gaz à effet de serre. Et on a également entamé un chantier pour l'amélioration de notre cadre institutionnel pour s'aligner aux recommandations du nouveau modèle de développement. En termes d'intégration régionale, je voudrais préciser qu'il y a une 3e ligne qui est bien sûr programmée avec nos partenaires espagnols, une ligne en projet avec notre partenaire du Portugal. Et lors de la COP27 dernier, le Maroc a signé, c'est-à-dire la 7 roadmap, c'est une feuille de route pour l'échange de l'électricité durable avec des pays partenaires européens, notamment l'Espagne, la France, le Portugal et l'Allemagne, en plus d'impact vert qui place le Maroc comme un partenaire clé vis-à-vis de l'Union européenne. Je terminerai juste pour l'efficacité énergétique qu'on a entamée, c'est-à-dire la mise à jour de notre démarche, de notre approche. On est en train de mettre à jour le pacte de l'exemplarité de l'administration publique, mais également on est en train d'élaborer des programmes sectoriels qui ciblent le secteur de l'industrie, le secteur de l'habitat, mais également le transport et le secteur de l'agriculture, avec bien sûr des plans régionaux. Et merci.
Well, thank you very much. And well, it was important that you stressed the amount, the interest that the Moroccan government puts and the effort, also financial and economical, in renewable energies. And the only, I think, line that connects Africa and the northern and the southern shore. The electric line that is between Morocco, Spain, and Portugal is also very important. And that is something to be stressed, because I mean, I know that there has been and there is a project of building one between Italy and Tunisia, but it's still a project. Now, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Ali Zeraouli, because he has a train to catch, and that's very sustainable that you don't take a plane but a train. But that's why, I mean, you have to sort of run. And he's executive head of cooperation and international development, Moroccan Agency for Sustainable Energy, and vice president of the Africa Commission at the CGM. So I wanted to start from Africa. I mean, it is a huge opportunity for Africa, huge challenges, and Africa, there's nothing like Africa. There are many, many countries with different kind of situations. Where do you see the biggest challenges, and how can the Mediterranean countries, how can we all together help to what Gramenos in the beginning said? Well, if this becomes a sea of peace, it means it becomes also a sea that becomes everybody feels better in peace. And that's very, very simple, but that makes the whole difference. Then development will come, and through development also economic growth comes. Or, I mean, and probably it's not the other way around. Please, you have the floor.
Merci. Vous avez totalement raison. Donc, cette nouvelle dynamique de transition énergétique crée des opportunités qui sont énormes pour les deux rives. Et M. Gramenov, tout à l'heure, l'a bien spécifié. Et en fait, ces mots appellent à de la vigilance. Parce que qu'est-ce que dit M. Gramenov? C'est que l'Europe a besoin de décarboner tout son système industriel, son écosystème à l'horizon 2050, qu'elle ne pourra pas le faire toute seule, et qu'elle a besoin de partenariats avec les pays du Sud et principalement les pays africains pour s'approvisionner en énergie propre et ainsi soutenir un effet de co-développement mutuel. Toutefois, c'est exactement cela qui appelle à la vigilance, parce que les opportunités autour de cette transition énergétique sont spécifiques à chaque région et sont différentes d'une région à l'autre. Alors que pour l'Europe, c'est une réelle opportunité de réduire ses importations énergétiques et de les transformer ou de les changer par des productions à la fois sur le territoire européen d'énergie renouvelable et d'importation d'énergie renouvelable. C'est aussi une opportunité de maintenir la compétitivité d'un certain secteur industriel ou d'améliorer cette compétitivité toujours en targetant la décarbonation des systèmes productifs. Alors qu'en face, ce qu'il faut savoir, c'est que, et ce qu'il faut garder en mémoire, c'est que nous parlons d'un continent dont en fait la contribution aux émissions carbone ne représente pas plus de 2,5 à 3% des émissions globales, alors qu'il représente plus de 20% de la population mondiale. Et ce que je vois, et ce qui est en train de se passer aujourd'hui, là où il faudrait une vigilance accrue, c'est alors que la signification que prend ou que revêt la transition énergétique par un bon nombre de pays africains, c'est pour certains l'accélération de l'accès universel à l'énergie. Et donc, à travers les énergies renouvelables, on essaye en fait de sauter l'étape de construction d'infrastructures réseau pour aller sur des productions off-grid, etc. et ainsi accélérer l'accès universel à l'énergie. Toutefois, dans bon nombre de pays subsahariens, le principal challenge, c'est l'off-take. Et c'est ce qui entrave le développement de capacités de production solaire ou éolienne pour alimenter la population parce que l'off-take n'est pas solvable. Aujourd'hui, nous vivons une nouvelle dynamique, surtout à travers l'hydrogène vert, mais aussi à travers la multiplication de projets d'interconnexion électrique. C'est que cette problématique d'off-take n'existe plus réellement dans l'exploitation des ressources renouvelables, puisqu'on peut l'exploiter. On a un off-take qui est plus bancable qu'en Europe. On produit de l'hydrogène dans un pays subsaharien et puis on envoie de l'hydrogène. Donc, ça va libérer un peu les forces de développement de centrales d'énergie renouvelables. Mais c'est là où j'appelle à la vigilance, c'est que ça sera au détriment en fait des populations locales, puisque les projets seront moins risqués quand l'off-take est à l'étranger, surtout dans un pays développé, que quand l'off-take est dans un pays subsaharien. Et on le voit déjà en Namibie, en Angola, un certain nombre de projets qui étaient là dans le pipe depuis des années sont en train de shifter vers de l'hydrogène vert parce qu'il y a plus d'assurance à trouver un off-taker en Europe. Donc, premier point de vigilance, ne pas changer en fait, faire de telle sorte que cette dynamique de transition énergétique globale soit au profit de toutes les populations, de tous les pays et qu'on ne transfère pas certaines valeurs ajoutées ou certains bénéfices d'une région par rapport à une autre en exploitant les ressources renouvelables d'une certaine région. Seconde chose qui est signification différente pour les pays du Sud par rapport aux pays du Nord, et là, j'inclus le Maroc ou les pays du pourtour méditerranéen qui sont plus développés, c'est qu'aujourd'hui, on le prend comme une réelle opportunité d'amélioration de la compétitivité industrielle. L'énergie est à la croisée de tous les secteurs. Et avec une énergie compétitive, on arrive à avoir une industrie lourde qui soit plus compétitive. Alors que ce soit pour la production de l'acier, de la production de verre, de ciment, etc. Plus l'énergie est compétitive, plus les coûts sont plus bas et donc plus tout le système industriel gagne en compétitivité. Bien sûr, ce n'est pas le seul paramètre, mais sur les industries lourdes, ça contribue à plus de 40% de la compétitivité. Donc, pour ces pays de la rive sud, c'est vraiment une opportunité d'amélioration du contenu industriel local et d'augmentation de la valeur ajoutée locale et qui va être exacerbée ou soutenue encore plus par le CBAM qui entre en vigueur en Europe. Donc, l'idée que je voudrais promouvoir ici, c'est de vraiment faire attention que les opportunités des uns ne phagocytent pas les opportunités des autres et qu'il faudrait en fait travailler de manière très enchevêtrée pour qu'en fait, c'est pour plutôt créer des complémentarités dans les chaînes de valeur industrielles entre les différentes régions, afin que le développement sur la base d'une transition énergétique d'une région ne se fasse pas au détriment d'une autre région. Les opportunités sont extrêmement nombreuses. Il y a des aberrations sur le marché. Et par exemple, on peut prendre le caoutchouc qui est extrait dans certains pays d'Afrique subsaharienne, qui est exporté dans certains pays en Asie avec un coût énergétique extrêmement bas, et puis qui sont réimportés, transformés en roues et réimportés au Maroc pour être assemblés dans l'industrie automobile, puis réexportés en Europe. Donc, il y a une partie de la chaîne de valeur qu'on pourrait, en travaillant plus de manière plus intelligente ensemble, on pourrait faire en sorte en fait que cette transition énergétique apporte réellement une valeur partagée globale avec une relocalisation des chaînes de valeur mondiales sur certains secteurs au bénéfice de tout le monde. Donc, j'appelle à ce que cette transition énergétique, dont l'Afrique n'est pas responsable au départ, soit également une solution de développement économique, industriel et social en Afrique en partenariat avec les pays de la rive nord de la Méditerranée.
Thank you very much. And well, this gives me the chance to go now to Brussels to Mrs. Milou Birepot. She is, of course, a climate and energy and climate change specialist. She is the project manager at the European Commission, and she's got a really long history in working in the international affairs industry and skilled in clean energy development and policy analysis. Well, welcome on board. And I would like to ask you, well, exactly, I mean, what Mr. Zeraouli, he stressed how many products, I mean, they will travel millions of kilometers and come back to Morocco and then from Morocco to Europe. And transition and climate change mitigation, and as we all know, I mean, is crucial for Europe. By 2050, we all would like to be carbon neutral, which is a big, big benchmark, a big goal. And this has to bring on board even the southern shore of the Mediterranean, if possible, because simply we're all interconnected. And the more south you live in Europe, the more you are aware of that, especially with climate change now. And as Grameno said, I mean, the whole of the Mediterranean coast, we will have the climate that is now, that has been for ages in Morocco, but we will have to adjust. And we still are not ready to. So please, I give you the floor because there are many, many aspects that here I think the audience is very, very keen on learning, because European Union is one of the biggest partners and the most reliable. But I mean, that is the partner with which one has to talk and one has to find an understanding. Please.
Thank you very much, Maria. And thank you to the host and the organizers for inviting me to speak. I'm very happy to participate in this. Can you hear me? Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, well, we have got some difficulties because there's translation coming in between. So I don't know if they can mute the translation or, well, do something.
Okay, just tell me when you think you're.
Yeah, now it's good.
Yeah.
Now it's good.
Okay, great, great. No, thanks a lot. Thanks, Maria, and thanks to the hosts and the organizers for inviting me to this panel. I'm very happy to represent.
It's not
It's not
good.
working?
Sorry.
Okay.
There is some delay. No, è ritardo audio. It's not good. Sorry. There is some delay. Well, that is one thing about distances. We are hearing 15 seconds afterwards. I mean, again, what we said, it's very, I hope that they can fix it.
Yeah, just let me know when you would like me to start.
Something about distances. We are hearing 15 seconds afterwards. I mean, again, what we said. A hint by an old journalist: call her Skype or WhatsApp, put the audio, that puts audio and video online. By an old journalist, call her Skype or WhatsApp, put the audio. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Mrs. Milou, Miraport, they will try to fix this audio and video disalliance. And I will go now to our other guest, which is always online, and I do hope that his video and his audio coincide. So Mr. Anis Terai, he is managing director at TEL Group. Please tell me that everything is all right.
Well, Maria, I guess you will tell me that everything is all right, right?
No. 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 No, it is not all right. Absolutely not. Well, the problem is, please don't go through YouTube, go through Skype or to something else, because like this, it is going to be hell. If I can give you a hint, always as a very old journalist who's been working in the field. No, it's. can we try to reconnect them? I don't know how you connected them. If you connected them Skype, give me a thumbs up, please. I mean, even good old WhatsApp would do. Okay. I suppose that they are trying to reconnect our speakers. I really don't know. Well, that was not programmed. As you can see, it's all live. Well,
Maybe in the meantime, we could give the floor to Mohammed and waiting for the others.
yes, but I think he's busy. Here he comes again. Oh, I see everybody online again. Oh, let us try. Mrs. Bilepot, you hear us, and well, it's always a question from before. Let's see if all the technical problems have been solved, which I really hope to have.
Yes, I really hope that it's working better now. Yes?
Yes,
Okay,
it
great.
is. Great.
Perfect. Yeah, this can happen. We know it's still a challenge to make technology work, but no worries. I'm happy it works. So thanks again, Maria, for the introduction, and the host and the organizers for inviting me to the panel. I'm very happy to represent the European Commission, DG NEAR, in this event. I saw some other sessions on including women-led and youth-led businesses, and that is something that also the European Commission finds very important in accelerating the energy transition in the Mediterranean region. So in my contribution, I would like to focus on two things. First of all, the importance of regional collaboration in the Mediterranean in order to accelerate the energy transition. And second, the role of EU policies and the impact and opportunities that they offer to our partners in the Mediterranean region. So to start with the first one on regional collaboration, I'm not telling you anything new by saying that the European Commission continues to put energy at the core of its partnership with our neighboring countries. And we continuously seek for opportunities of mutual interest that can contribute and make positive impact to all our populations. So we emphasize a strong policy dialogue for that. But we also recently enlarged our financial instruments. We can now deploy guarantees, guarantee schemes that aim at crowding in private investors. So we are looking for private sector investment. We're looking for businesses to work with us in creating this energy transition. But we do know that this will only work if we have the right regulatory frameworks in place. And that's where we would like to see stable regulatory frameworks that include, for example, very clear rules for access to electricity grids, clear rules for setting up power purchase agreements, equal treatment of foreign and domestic investors, also something very challenging, cost-reflective energy pricing, and, for example, having independent energy regulatory authorities. So this is where the European Commission is supporting several regional collaboration to work on these aspects. First of all, the dedicated energy platforms of the UfM are very important for this type of regional collaboration. And we also have a number of regional collaboration networks. Just to name a few, we have one on regulators, how to work together in the Mediterranean region on setting up independent energy regulators. We also have a network that is working on these electricity interconnections. You just mentioned, for example, this interconnection between Italy and Tunisia. This is one of those interconnections that has been very strongly supported by this regional collaborative network. And then we also have some specific initiatives, one on energy efficiency in buildings and one on green hydrogen development. We see that this regional collaboration and regional learning is very important in order to get everybody on the same page and to make this progress. Now, the other topic I wanted to touch on is the regulatory frameworks developed by the European Commission. And this is where we want to provide certainty for investors, not only European investors, but also investors operating outside of Europe. You probably have seen the Repower EU plan that was published last year, where we foresee a need for a strong diversification of the EU's energy supply in order to become independent from Russian gas. So this Repower EU plan puts great emphasis on the Mediterranean region. For example, for the supply of renewable hydrogen from Northern African countries. This was also just mentioned by the previous speaker. We have a lot of challenges and we need to consider a lot of aspects in this idea of renewable hydrogen export from Northern Africa to Europe. But it is clear that renewable electricity production in Northern Africa offers huge opportunities for very cheap electricity prices that can then produce any kind of product such as renewable hydrogen or its derivatives. But we are continuously working on these regulatory frameworks, and two more recent important examples that have a relevance to the Mediterranean region are, first of all, the Net Zero Industry Act. This was just published last March. And here we are looking for increased industrial production capacity in Europe, but also this act is welcoming production facilities of, for example, clean energy technologies in the neighboring countries. So this could also be of high importance and relevance for the Northern Africa region. And another recent development is the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, the CBAM. This is about avoiding carbon leakage, for example, by moving away production from the EU or importing high carbon content products from outside the EU. So the idea is that there will be a levy on the import of certain products depending on the carbon content. And the first range of products includes, for example, electricity and hydrogen. So this is another policy development that will become very relevant for the region. So just to wrap up, I think it's clear that there are a lot of opportunities for private sector in the Mediterranean region to make contributions to the energy transition. Also for SMEs, they have a smaller size, more agility, more flexibility. So they are very well placed to tap into those opportunities in developing green products and services and be a driver of good quality jobs. So we would like to encourage the private sector to stay abreast of these EU policy developments that are also very relevant for the Mediterranean region. In order to take advantage of the possibilities that are offered by these policies. And yeah, I think we will continue to support this regional collaboration. As we see, this is very important to work together on securing a net zero carbon region in the future. So let me stop here and thank you very much for your attention.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And what you just said, and I would immediately go to Mr. Anis Terai, Managing Director of the TEL Group. There we have the private sector as where Ms. Birepot, she stressed, I mean, the importance for Europe of the transition and the importance that this transition is done in a way that all countries, all stakeholders take into consideration the carbon print that we leave behind, and it is all done together. So this togetherness was a big stress in her report. And now we have got a very important private group, TEL Group, and we have got the managing director, Mr. Anis Terai, he's online. So this is a huge opportunity that is presented with that. There is something huge at stake, because I mean, climate change here, especially in Morocco, like everywhere else in Europe, you have felt, I mean, especially on the agriculture, but not only, I mean, it has impacted a lot. So I'd like to ask you, I mean, your group, you come from private sector, what does that mean? And how is your work changing? Where do you think that there is an opportunity, and what should be changed and done? What are your requests?
Well, thank you very much. I think that it is important, in fact, as you said, to be mindful of the requests of everyone. I mean, from the private sector, from the public sector, from the civil society, from north, east, southern shores of the Mediterranean. So it is an exercise of inclusivity, in fact. So thank you, Maria, and thanks to the hosts and organizers. In fact, TEL Group is a Mediterranean investment firm. We are also present in emerging markets, and we have been working under the umbrella of the PLIF, which is the PAMEX Local Investment Finance Facility, which is in fact the financial arm of the PAMEX. I guess some of you in the audience know what's PAMEX, but for the sake of everyone, PAMEX basically is the latest born of the Euro-Mediterranean process. So basically it is the vision for a clean, a carbon neutral, and also a Mediterranean aware of the challenges of climate and biodiversity by 2030. So the French president, Emmanuel Macron, has led basically this new Mediterranean initiative, and it has been joined by many countries across the Mediterranean. And the uniqueness is that for the first time, the initiative has an investment and a financial arm to it. So basically allowing to transform this vision statement to material projects, initiatives towards achieving the sustainable development and climate action. So the PLIF basically is an initiative that was launched during the COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh. It is based in Marseille, so the secretariat is in Marseille in France, and it is co-chaired by Renaud Muselier, who is the president of Région Sud, so the southern region of France, and Mr. Hisham Al-Arab, who's a major investment banker and financial sector professional from Egypt. So the organization has already this Mediterranean, European, and non-Mediterranean, I would say, dual leadership. And within that framework, the idea is exactly what Milo was saying initially, is to see how we could blend public resources, including concessional funding, guarantees, grants, but also private sector resources in the form of equity investment, debt investment, and other types of required financial resources. And to basically to mainly achieve three goals. First, through a nature-based solution, try to revitalize the existing climate resources and climate heritage basically across the Mediterranean in a manner that achieves both the climate priorities, but also yields financial returns and create jobs across the Mediterranean. The other objective is to fight against plastic. Every year, there is 10 million tons of plastic that are thrown in the seas across the world. I mean, it represents almost the size of a country like Qatar in just a single year. So that amount of plastic is thrown to the seas every year. So within the context of the Mediterranean, there is this project to basically not only collect plastic and retrieve it from the sea, but also to make some good economical and ecological uses out of it, and also to raise awareness to avoid basically polluting further the sea. The third initiative which TEL Group has been tasked with is the greening of infrastructure, mainly ports, or at least to start with ports across the Mediterranean. And we all know how ports are important both for trade, but also for the movement of people. Within that program, TEL Group has been tasked to structure a special purpose vehicle to invest in these asset class. So our intervention has 3 dimensions. First of all, it has to do with the electrification of ports themselves, allowing the ships that stop within the ports to connect to the grid of the port. So traditionally, the ships that are within the premises of a port let their engine run because of their requirement of electricity, which is basically polluting the port premises, the neighborhood of the port, and the sea. As we were saying initially, previously, as my colleagues were saying, policy and regulation are important tool in this nexus of achieving climate action. So the European Union has decided that by 2030, any ship that enters the European ports has to stop its engine, meaning it has to find another source of electricity, and the source of electricity will be provided by the ports, but the ports are not ready. So basically, our first priority is to invest in these ports, transform their network, and give them the possibility to provide electricity to ships. But now the question is, the pollution is just shifting from the ships to the land. So that basically requires the production or the supply of ports with green electricity. And this is the second layer of investment. So basically, we're investing in green and clean power, be it solar, wind, but also hydroelectricity. So different types of electricity, and that leads us to the production of green hydrogen from the excess of power, which in the future would be used hopefully as fuel, or the green ammonia that is produced, out of the green hydrogen as
Mr. Terai, I'm sorry to interrupt you. You
No
have got only
worries.
5 minutes left, and I wanted to give the word to our last speaker because we had a bit of technical problems in the middle. So Mr. Mohammed El Husseini from Union for Mediterranean. He's a diplomat. He has worked Egypt, Libya, Warsaw, and Addis Ababa, and he's an expert in energy. And well, to you, the biggest question actually, Mohammed, so many different policies. The goal is to bring everybody to the same kind of sustainability, which is, of course, very difficult. How can one achieve that? And how can one try to work towards that achievement? Because if you just physically think of the Mediterranean, you can already see that there are dozens of countries with different histories, policies, governments, and so on. But then, as Mr. Terai just reminded us, we have got islands of plastic floating around, harbors that pollute. And our goal is, well, to clean it up, but how, when, where are the mistakes? What can we fix?
Well, it's a big question, and I hope I will be able to answer, but I will build. Okay. I do my best. I will build up on the broader vision that was introduced by Gramenos as regards the work and the mandate of the Union for the Mediterranean. And based on what was said already, it's clear that energy transition is a necessity, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions is also a necessity. We have different capabilities on both shores of the Mediterranean. The pace on which energy transition is taking place is different from one place to another. But here comes the power of multilateralism. I mean, we have bilateral agreements, we have bilateral accords being carried out between countries, but we at the Union for the Mediterranean, we are able to bring 43 member countries together. We hold different meetings every now and then to exchange views, to try to solve, let's say, the pending issues in terms of the technicalities and the pace through which we should reach the net zero emissions. We have an annual meeting on energy platforms in which we invite the member states, plus the co-presidency, of course, the EU Commission and Jordan from the south, as well as the stakeholders with whom we work. And through this, it's like a hub in which we exchange views. We do our mission that I just mentioned, that everybody speaks about the targets that they have and the problems they are facing, and we try to reach something. Recently, I remember we came up with a proposal that was welcomed by everybody and was supported. It's a project to support street lighting, public street lighting in different municipalities in the Mediterranean. This is an example. Another example we worked on was a wind farm in Jordan, Tafila wind farm. It was a promising project that started 10 years ago. We labeled it, we supported it, and it touches upon the topic of today's meeting, the private sector, encouraging the private sector to engage with the public sector, providing finance, job creation. It was a successful experience, which was replicated later on in other countries. I don't think I have much time, so I'll stop here and
You have
1 minute. I want to say that it is mentioned in the declaration, the ministerial declaration on energy, which was issued in 2021. The issues of creating the business environment adequate for achieving energy transition and climate goals, as well as the encouragement of the private sector. So it is there. I mean, we managed to brought the countries together, as I said, and we reached something on the ground. And then from there, we come to other levels, smaller levels, let's say technicalities on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed El Husseini, very much. Thank you, everybody, and thank you also, Mrs. Miloubi Repot. Thank you for having the patience. I think you're still online. No, you're not anymore. Well, thank you. And Mr. Anis Terai, that is connected. Thank you very much for being with us. Gramenos Mastroianni and Mr. Mohammed Ahmed, the Director of Renewable Energies here from the Ministry of Morocco. Thank you very much for your time, and keep on talking, because I do think that that is the way to slowly build one Mediterranean. Thank you very much.